Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Nick, joined by Franco,
What's going on, everybody?
as always, and we're here today to tell you about our experiences watching Black Widow, Marvel's newest addition to their theatrical run. And it's been a really long time in the making, waiting for this film to finally drop, and I had a great experience with it. And we're here to talk about our first impressions. So, Frank, what did you think about the movie? Yeah, we just saw it about an hour ago, so how do you feel?
I'll definitely say I was pleasantly surprised. Like, my expectations were pretty low with the movie. Like, I definitely wanted it a year ago when it was supposed to come out, and at this point, I was just looking forward to any new Marvel movie they were going to give us. But at the end of the day, this movie has a lot of great stuff in it. It was really giving us that standalone story for Natasha that we should have gotten years ago when she was first introduced. And it does a lot to really build up her backstory and make her kind of a more fleshed out character at the end of the day.
Yeah, going into this, my really only anticipation was I wanted them to do justice to this character that has been so important to the Marvel family for its entire run, basically. This is something that should have happened years ago. So, of course, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I would recommend any Marvel fan to go see it. And we're going to talk about very mild spoilers, some key points throughout the film. Nothing that will give anything too crazy away, but definitely a lot of important stuff we'd like to talk about. So, Frank, what was the first topic you'd like to mention?
I definitely wanted to get into the beginning prologue of the film because it's very important for setting up the story and giving us this backstory to these characters that we're going to follow throughout the film. But I felt like it was very uninteresting and lacking in a lot of like kind of more like in-depth material. Like it was kind of boring in some parts. What do you think of that though?
I definitely see your point there, and honestly, while I was watching it, it's kind of lengthy, this prologue, and you're kind of wondering, what, alright, when's the movie gonna start? Who are these people? And I think once you get into the movie, you understand why they did it, but I don't think that really uh, validates why it was so necessary. I think it could have been condensed, and I think it could have been explained a little bit better. But, I mean, when you put it into context, I think it was important for it to be there, but I think the execution could have been a little bit better to not have made it so, I don't know, stopped it from dragging so much, I think.
Mm. So speaking of that, like how it set up the characters, what did you really think of them all though? Because in my opinion, I think this was the one Marvel movie I'd say where I liked the whole supporting cast. No one felt boring or uninteresting really, like their character wise. They were all had a lot of personality and a lot of depth to them at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is definitely a very character driven film. I mean, you look at the past Marvel movies, a lot of them have tons of characters throughout the whole movie. And really, this one's not like that. You really are set on this focused group of people and their separate emotions and connections with one another. It's very hard to pull off an ensemble cast, and I gotta hand it to them for definitely making this one work.
Yeah, like honestly, like I was very interested in Stranger Things season 4 that they were giving us. Like Russian Hopper was awesome.
Yeah.
Like yeah, like he was just chilling there the whole time. Like what's going on? But nah, I'm just messing. At the end of the day, like really, like I think it was really cool what they did with that character, Alexei specifically, and also for those of you that don't know, like Alexei, that was the guy from Stranger Things, like 3, like that Russian guy that they were all friends with. I think that was really funny how they kind of named him that. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I really like that detail. And really, he was like his whole character was basically built as the Russians version of Captain America, and you see like how he tries to like kind of mimic that like Steve Rogers esque like personality type, but it's kind of twisted and it's more like he has the confidence, but he's lacking like the heroism that really makes Steve Rogers who he is.
Yeah, I thought David Harbour's character was a fantastic addition to this film, and he had great chemistry with both Natasha and Florence Pugh's character, who was also a great addition, was making our whole theater laugh and had some really great jokes and one-liners. And the casting and these characters all across the board is really what makes this movie work and what makes it worthwhile. I think that's where the replay value is going to be. Not so much in what this story adds to the MCU, but how these characters interact and care for each other.
Mm. And yeah, of course, let's not forget about our main character herself, Natasha. Natasha, she has been very hit or miss. If you notice across the Marvel movies, they were kind of struggling to give her a solid personality, and she was just kind of there to be a part of the team and kind of be sassy or whatever. But they've really done such a good job of fleshing her out from like Civil War, like so forth, and probably Endgame obviously was like her like the best her character's been. So it was definitely a hard job for them in this Black Widow movie to kind of continue her development in some way to get her from how she was in Civil War to how she was in Endgame. But I think this movie did a really good job of just showing her like more vulnerable side and showing like what she has to fight for and what she's gone through and why this has made her the person she is.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of reasons, this smaller story was really going to work for a Black Widow movie because there was so much to deal with Natasha's character that they never had time to handle in the Avengers movies. And now that she has her own movie, they take the time to go into her backstory and her feelings and really just and personal things about her. And that was just a joy to see for a character that I've really liked for so many years.
So we've just touched on our heroes, but now I think it's important to also cover the villains.
Yep, the Taskmaster. It's been a while. We've been really waiting to see this character join the MCU, and now it's finally here. Did it live up to the hype? Frank, did you like it?
I actually didn't mind it, but from coming from my perspective, I don't really didn't know much about Taskmaster. I remember fighting him a few times in the Spider-Man PS4 game, and he was cool, and I was just kind of excited to see the Taskmaster on screen. And I mean, what we got was really cool. Like his whole like set is like he can copy and memorize any fight pattern. So fighting him's like they explain like fighting a mirror of yourself basically, and I think they delivered on that end. It kind of sucked that Taskmaster didn't really feel like a character, kind of just like an obstacle or a plot device for our characters to face, like to get to the real meat of what's going on with the plot of the story. But it kind of takes an interesting turn at the end, and I'm excited to see what else they may do with this character in the future.
Yeah, I think that it was a really interesting take on the character that they went with. It's one that I think people aren't going to necessarily be totally on board with, but I think that in the end, it worked out really well given the context of the story. Again, this is a movie about Natasha. It's not necessarily about the villains or the antagonist or whatever the plot is. And that's why I think this kind of subtle villain, like the way they implemented the Taskmaster, really worked out well because they don't need some kind of evil overlord that's trying to take over the world. This is Natasha's story and really focused on her family, and that's why I think this more nuanced antagonist really worked well. I know a lot of people were hoping the Taskmaster would be having a bigger role in the MCU, but there are so many villains, and especially ones that are going to come into the future that, maybe they didn't do all they could have for the Taskmaster, but there's so much more to look forward to. I don't really mind it.
Yeah. I'm glad that when you were explaining that, you stressed on the fact that this is Natasha's story and that the smaller scale really helped kind of develop what they were going for a little better. Because now I want to ask you about what you thought of the standalone elements of this movie. Because honestly, this movie felt very like on its own, not really trying to fit into a larger context in the MCU, just giving us exactly what it says. It's Black Widow's story. And what did you think of this being really like a standalone film, and would you like to see like more
Well,
stuff
it's
like
it's
this?
definitely standalone, but what you're saying about it fitting into the larger context, it was definitely trying to fit into the context. It just wasn't trying to advance it. it had so much story to find its little place in, to just try to find an extra seat in this cramped theater of movies and plot lines and characters. And because of that, there wasn't much they could have done to advance the MCU. But I don't think it needed to. And I'm fine with that, for taking a deeper look at these characters. And yeah, I would like to see this more for some of the more subtle characters. I mean, I think we're seeing it with Loki and even with Wanda, with WandaVision, a more focused narrative that was really about her and not much else.
Yeah, like I really was relieved, like kind of watching this story, because as much as I really do love the whole story the Marvel universe tries to tie everything in, sometimes it really does get a little like daunting to like remember everything and to want to keep up with everything. And I think it makes it hard for newer fans to want to hop in. But like honestly, with a movie like this, it's just a really like solid story. And although there may be still some other finer details you may not get, it's still at the end of the day feels like a solid story, like a beginning, middle, and end. Really tells the story of this woman who dealt with all this trauma throughout her life and is doing whatever she can to correct the mistakes of her past and to kind of save the world in a sense.
Yeah, I definitely think you could watch this one on your own, but I also think that having that emotional attachment to Natasha and also knowing what she's been through, what she's done, what she's capable of is really important for the viewing. But that goes for any Marvel movie. Same with the Guardians. They could be watched by themselves, but if you know how they connect, it's going to make them so much better.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, now we are going to get into a massive spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about the post-credit scene. So if you have not seen this movie, please go watch the movie and then come back. All right,
Definitely.
now let's get right into it. Okay, wasn't it crazy when Tony showed up at the end
I was
and
so happy.
came back from dead and brought everyone back, and the Avengers were all together and they all got shawarma again? It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm so happy for him.
Yeah, that's what I wish happened. it was it was a very bittersweet ending. We finally get to see Natasha's funeral. Like this is something that I felt we should have had in Endgame. I know we had the focus on Tony during that, but I mean Black Widow's just as significant as any Avenger. So I don't know why it was kind of left to the post credit scene. I feel like maybe this should have been a part of the full movie, but you know they made their choice, and of course we see Yelena is being set up for a confrontation with another character that'll probably come up in a Disney Plus show, maybe, or another Black Widow movie. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But at the end of the day, we can tell that the Black Widow legacy is like far from done, and that although Natasha is gone, her name and her legacy will probably live on through Yelena or any other of the Black Widows. We saw there's a whole legion of them still kicking.
Yeah, I thought it was very surreal to have a movie based around one character, one superhero the whole time, and then at the very end you see her grave, and that's just it. Like, and if you don't know what happened in Endgame, then it sucks to see that. But yeah, that was very hard to see because a movie wholly focused about Natasha, and then just to be reminded that that's how it ends, kind of makes you wish that you could just go and change it and change the writers' minds. But I understand that's not happening anytime soon. So it was very bittersweet, like you said. And I'm excited to see Alina become an actual part of the main cast. I hope that happens. I hope Florence Pugh is available to be a part of the MCU for a long time, because I think that would be a great way to carry on Black Widow's legacy. But overall, I thought that Black Widow was a very good, maybe final outing for Scarlett Johansson's iconic character. I'm definitely going to miss the character and the stories, but I think that there's plenty of legacy here. And think about all of the impact that this character has left on the MCU forever. And I think that this movie maybe could have done a little bit better to resemble that, but I think did a really good shot of trying to encapsulate all of that significance behind this character.
I'm so happy that we got this final outing with Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. This character has been a joy to watch since Iron Man 2, and one of the most interesting characters to watch develop throughout all of her appearances. And I'm so glad that Marvel decided to give her the movie that she so rightfully deserved, and that it was as good as it was. And I will look back on this character, although, like, I do believe, like, the ending was a little all over the place, like, because it sucks. It can't be a concise thing. Like, you have to have the context of an Endgame to really get it. But at the end of the day, this was her story, and it was a very good story told. And I will miss this character very dearly. And I'm so excited to see what the future may hold with the MCU and with the Black Widow legacy.
Yeah, guys, but tell us what you thought about Black Widow. Have you seen it yet? If not, make sure you go see it. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Peace.